Hi, welcome to the lecture on math in early childhood curriculum, presented by Dr. Pimentel Stratton and myself, Dr. Towns. Today we're going to talk about what in math do we actually teach children in early childhood. So some of the topics that we're going to cover are counting, spatial relations, patterns, measurement, and operations. So I'm going to pass it over now to Dr. Pimentel so she can talk to you about spatial relations.
Okay, hi. So starting off learning about spatial relations and awareness in early childhood. So what does it mean? We are looking at how children learn to use their bodies and movement through space. And they also experiment with the object properties, meaning is it big? Is this thing small? Is it long? Is it short? And how does it travel across the floor? For instance, if I roll a ball across the floor, what is going to happen? What is that outcome? So these are the many ways that we see children learning and experimenting with spatial awareness and movement. So it refers to an understanding of how objects and people move in relationship to each other. They demonstrate an awareness of these objects very early on. Next slide. All right, so children demonstrate an awareness, as I said, of how people move and fit in space when they do certain things. Like you see children dropping objects into a bucket. You see, like the little girl in this picture, how she's measuring how far to place her foot so it lands on the log. The little girl measuring the height of the block tower. Those children measuring each other, comparing each other. Children engage with these concepts constantly. Is it near? Is it far? Is it up and down, straight? So these different aspects of spatial relationship are very fundamental in children's everyday awareness, in children's everyday interactions. Next slide. So how do we facilitate, how do we help children in this awareness? Well, we don't actually sit down and give them a lesson on this is what near means, this is what far means. Rather, we facilitate their natural learning by using one of the techniques is what we call spatial language. And we demonstrate this as teachers when we tell children, put the basket under the chair. Now pick it up and put it on top of the table. That's just one of the many ways teachers encourage children every day with spatial language to increase their awareness. And this is very important because we know children that can learn to express concepts and negotiate what they need, what they want, observations in their childhood using this type of language helps them learn quickly and helps them to engage with others more competently in their classroom and in their environment. Next slide. Okay, so here's a clip, a very important video clip that we want you to return to later after the lecture.
These bears aren't.
Okay, let's see if it works. Sometimes it's a bit choppy. Are we going to stop it?
We can try it.
No, lion.
Okay.
Which one do you think is the bear at the end of the line? Okay. And which one is the bear at the beginning of the line? How do you know that this one was at the beginning, at the end, and this one was at the beginning?
Because that one's in the back, and that one's in the middle, and that one's in the front.
Okay. Great. Okay, good job. Say bye to the bears. We're going to do something else. Bye, bears. Cookie, you can kiss them. All right, good.
So in this charming video clip, we see a prime example of how children learn to use the spatial language and demonstrate what it means to them to be in front, behind, in the middle. So what does this clip teach us? that the child can interpret a question differently from the adult who asks the question. So you have to be careful with your choice of words when you're asking a child to perform a certain task. Bring it here, put it on top, put it underneath, because the way the child perceives that may be different to what you're intending it to mean. The language of questions matters a great deal. Asking open-ended questions in this way is very important in this stage of development. Also, this shows us that there is a lot of mathematics anywhere throughout children's ordinary interactions and then in their routine throughout the day. So, okay, moving on.
Sorry.
So let's remember, in a preschool setting, children's teachers offer opportunities through structured and non-structured activities that support spatial thinking and awareness, just as in the clip that we demonstrated. That was more of a structured activity. You can support children's development of geometric concepts constantly. Everything you look at in the room, you see ovals, you see circles, you see triangles, you see squares. So it's important. Let's not leave that out of children's ordinary language. Moving on. And so to conclude this spatial awareness discussion, let's keep these things in mind. Children learn through non-structured activities, the orientation of their bodies, the orientation of objects around them means which way are they facing? Are they up? Are they down? Are they under? Are they above? So orientation is very important. Mental transformation, meaning they're learning constantly how to hold that image mentally. And in this way, reverse those actions. So mental transformation is important. And also, as always, being aware of their environment, spatial awareness in relations, and how they move themselves and other objects in space. So just some activities like puzzles, block play, playing in the sandbox, drawing with any artistic materials, and many, many more daily activities are just some of the ways children are constantly engaged in spatial awareness and relationships. So moving it on to our next topic with Dr. Towns.
Counting. Hi, before I move on from this slide, as Dr. Pimentel was talking, I just started thinking about how often we as grown folk do mental transformations in our living room. I don't know if you're one of those people, but I'm always like moving the furniture around like that would fit. And then, I think in my head that it will fit, but sometimes my spatial understanding is not so good. So when my son and my husband move the furniture and then they're like, doesn't fit, put it back. They're like, oh, not real happy with me. All right. So we're moving on to counting what children need to know. So again, you should have already read in the reading materials that I gave you what children need to know about counting article. I put that in a hyperlink at the bottom of this slide. Please read that article if you have not done so, because I'm only going to touch briefly on what it really actually goes in depth on. So counting words, it talks about how number words have different kinds of meaning and children have to kind of figure out that meaning. So when you say hit channel 5 on the TV, it's a little bit different from saying hit the 5 for the 5th floor or you have 5 cookies. So 5 is still representative of the number 5, but it has slightly different meaning in the use. And so children learn that you do use counting language in different ways as we use counting language, as we talk to them and as we say the different types of use, then they hear the language and they begin to process and understand. So we do want to expose them to this and we want to point it out when we can. Then there's also the idea of enumeration, which under enumeration they have say number words in their proper order. So we're teaching children. Oh, and I did want to say that Remember that when we're teaching early childhood education, we are exposing. Exposure is the key, not necessarily complete mastery. So yes, we want to start these ideas, and yes, some of them will be mastered by some of the children, but not all of the children will leave our classroom at age 4 or almost turning 5 with mastery in all of these areas. So keep that in mind. And especially if you have your own child at home, don't think that if your child's 4 and they don't know proper number order, they're mixing up when they count from 1 to 30, they're mixing up the numbers. That's okay. That's okay. They're starting to understand the idea of counting. They're starting to understand the concept, and that's good. That's what you want. So but as a teacher, we're keeping in mind that we do want them to eventually get the proper order. So we're exposing them to the proper order in different ways in the environment, in developmentally appropriate ways. We're matching one number with one thing, so one-to-one correspondence. So one object is 1 all by itself, and the second object is 2 all by itself, or you may have 3 objects, and if they're not part of a set, then they're each 1. So you want to teach them that every item, one thing means 1. And then you also have where you want to teach them to count things only once, and you will see this done a million times at a preschool lunch table. They will count each other and they'll say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's everybody at the table, and they'll go 6, 7, 8. They'll continue to count the kids around the table because they don't understand yet that you only count each item once. And so that's okay. That's something you're working on. Again, if they don't get it by the time they leave your classroom, that's okay. It's things that we want to expose them to. The idea of cardinality that the number of elements is in a set, okay? And so when you have 4 items, that is one set, and the set ends at 4. This is a very difficult concept for children to get. Don't expect them all to grasp it, but yes, expose them and do activities that where they're counting sets and you are showing them that the set ends. Then you have beginning addition, which again, you're really teaching them the idea that adding results in more, and beginning subtraction, which is that subtraction results in less. And so these are the ideas and the concepts that we are teaching young children about counting. So what I want you to do now for processing counting and really getting into how to count, how to teach children how to count, I want you to go to the following link and watch the video and read about Ben. And then you're going to answer these questions in the space provided as a part of your discussion. And for number 4, you want to go to the link underneath number 4 to read the article and select the book that you would use to teach counting. Now, you cannot use any of the books already mentioned in the article, so find your own book, but do go to that article and see how they use picture books for counting. Okay, so now I want to go ahead and pass it over to Dr. Pimentel, who is going to continue on what is a pattern.
Okay, so looking at patterns, what is a pattern? It's, we can say, in the classic description, patterns are arrangements of things that repeat in a logical way. But what does this really mean for children? How do we explain to them what is a pattern and have them really internalize that as part of their knowledge? So rather than teaching them or trying to explain the concept to them, going off of the notion that Dr. Towns just explained to us, we're not looking for a lecture or teacher to children or mastery. Rather, we are exposing them and showing them these concepts. So next slide. Okay, so, as I said, what a pattern is one of those terms that's a little bit difficult to define, and especially to very young children. So in order to illustrate this, why don't we try to take a look at how this little girl reacts to her teacher's questions. What is a pattern? And let's see how she responds. We're gonna do a pattern. Do you know what a pattern is?
Yellow, red, yellow, red, yellow, red, orange, yellow, red, orange, yellow, yellow, red, orange, yellow.
Interesting. So that's what a pattern is? Can you tell me any more about a pattern?
Blue, orange, yellow, red, orange, green, orange, yellow, blue, green, orange, pink, and blue, orange, green, yellow, and red too.
Okay, very good. So did you see what she did there? She didn't try to explain or define. She demonstrated her concept. She showed us what is a pattern in her mind. And as you can see, she's still experimenting with the term, the concept, the idea, but she's got a really great idea. Okay, so we build on what the children already know. And as we see, children show us, they display, they demonstrate. Okay, we can't ask them for perfect mastery, as Dr. Town said. It's an everyday type of learning through their interactions. Next slide.
Yellow, red, yellow, blue, green, orange.
Sorry about that.
Okay, so keeping this in mind, all right, with, keep in mind the way the little girl in the previous slide demonstrated her understanding of a pattern. Okay, look at some of these images. Okay, children arrange patterns, and they demonstrate this when they arrange through colors, through different shapes, even sounds. Think of when we do music with children, we do lots of clapping, different types of tones. Children find a pattern of that. The same type of images, and even arranging patterns with numbers. So these are just some very good examples, as you can see on your screen, of how children work and play with patterns all on their own. Okay. Next slide. So patterns everywhere. All right. How can we support children in their use of finding and identifying and making patterns everywhere? Support children in their natural curiosity to explore patterns throughout their environment, because it is a natural instinct for them to find these patterns out and then to recreate them with almost any object they see. They're drawn to sorting out patterns that they see throughout their environment. Children find patterns, once again, by arranging objects through color, through size, through shape, and even through sound. Next slide. It's their natural instinct, again, to look for patterns. So just in review of this basic concept about finding patterns, they find patterns hidden throughout their daily routines and their activities. As we see in this picture, we see squares, we see ovals, we see circles, we see half circles. Teachers help children practice with patterns, which leads to their more engagement with their environment, with each other, with socialization, and contributing to their overall learning. For teachers, facilitating these experiences encourages important social bonds with each other, children and children, and also with the adults and teachers in their environment. Okay, and with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Town.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Pimentel. So now we're going to talk just briefly about measurement and what children need to know. So again, this is a review of the article that I assigned in class. So please read this article if you have not already done so on mathematics of measurement. I put it there in a hyperlink on the slide for you. So, and it's also in the Canvas class. But what children need to know? They need to know about length, height, area, capacity, weight, time. These are all ideas that hopefully you all got, but maybe some of you didn't. How many of you remember how to get area? So when we're talking about teaching area in early childhood, we're actually not doing multiplication because they're not there yet, right? So we're just teaching the ideas of how area comes together, capacity, weight. We're not teaching actual physical weight in numbers, but we're teaching that things are heavy and light. So we're introducing the ideas. We're giving the children exposure to the terms. We're talking about the terms when they measure themselves, as we see here in the picture, the little boy measuring himself a little bit higher than he actually is. We say, oh, this is how high, this is how tall you are. This is how high your arm can reach. So we're giving the words, we're using the measurement words in daily activity in developmentally appropriate ways, and we're starting to teach them time. Time is such a lost art because of digital clocks. It's sad to me. I know children who like, oh yeah, I remember we did a unit on time in 3rd grade, but I don't really know how to tell time because of the fact that I don't have a clock in my house. We only have digital time everywhere we go. So that's kind of sad. But yeah, we want to introduce time. We want to talk about a clock. We should have a clock in our preschool classrooms so that we can. And then also the notion of time passing, which children really don't have a concept of. That's why when you say like, oh, mom's coming at the end of the school day, that means really nothing to a 4-year-old or a 3-year-old. So you might say mom is coming after nap time when you wake up. That gives them a little bit more concrete sense of time. So these are the things we're working on with children in measurement. So I want you to process the idea of measurement. So working with measurement with young children. So I want you to watch the magic minutes, the math minutes. I have a link here that you can click on, and I want you to watch this. And then I want you to answer the 2 questions below in the space provided of the class, of the at the presentation. Then we have operations. Now, I'm not really going to talk about operations because this is where you as a college student get to go and dive in and learn on your own. So now that you're familiar with the Dream website, I want you to complete the following assignment and submit this again in the discussion for the week in the space that's going to be provided for you. So you find an activity to use with children to teach operations, and an informal paper on operations for parents on the Dream site, and then post it in your discussion. And then again, you always want to comment to 2 other student posts. Okay, thank you for listening. I'm going to put up the icon of me and Dr. Pimentel so we can both say goodbye to you. Okay, Lily, you're on the screen, so bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening and learning. We appreciate it. And get your work done on time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.